Him? You mean the ninth man?
The Namco Museum series of PS1 games is a 5-disc, 6-disc if you're in Japan, compilation of various arcade games that Namco put out in the 80s and 90s. These range from titles that I would assume everyone knows to titles I'd be surprised if anyone knows. The selection of games is pretty substandard though. Each disc only holds about 7 games, which is pretty piss poor when compared to compilations you can get today. Even other iterations of the Namco Museum series for more modern consoles offer better deals. So why even bother talking about the PS1 version? Well, there's actually a museum in Namco Museum. In each game, there's a building to walk around in and interact with in first person. There's information about each of the games you can play, as well as pictures and promotional material to look at. This is by far my favorite part of these discs, so much so that I rarely find myself playing the titles themselves. There are unique 3D areas to look at for each game, as well as new things in the hub area in each of the 5 discs, adding up to plenty of unique environments and animations to enjoy. I'm not going to show you every single thing in the Namco Museum, but I'll show you the areas that really stuck out to me, and trust me, there are plenty of them. The first disc starts off with a nice CG intro of Pac-Man nearly getting run over by cars, but he gets over it pretty quickly. Inside the museum, you're greeted by a strange, abstract robot woman. She's a returning character in all the other discs actually, but all she does is register your memory card. Inside is an admittedly boring room with doors that lead to all the games. The first room is just a big empty white space with a grandfather clock in the middle. Not very interesting, but definitely weird thanks to the music. The next room is one of my favorites, and it's not hard to see why. I could actually spend hours in a room like this, I'm not even joking. Next is the room for Galaga, which is also pretty nice. There's also a lounge with a bar and jukebox, but there's really not much to look at in here. Thankfully, I'd say the first disc is the most held back, and it only gets better from here. The second disc's intro is Pac-Man playing Pac-Man, and then he gets shot into space. Now, the second disc is basically just a small expansion to the first. The hub area is the same, but the sky outside is a different color. Thankfully, there are still some great areas. This one is just strange, with balls of energy bouncing up and down repeatedly. The walls are a bit eerie too, very alien. This next one is also a little unsettling. It reminds me of grid-based fantasy PC games from the 90s. I'd hate to be stuck in a world like this, I'm out of here. This place is simple, but I like the spinning effect. The next area is pretty relaxing. The music reminds me of Hotel Dusk on the DS. They have a picture of Pac-Man hung up here, but he looks a little bit off. Unfortunately, the only way out is through this guy's mouth, and he seems a bit too happy about it. So, I have no choice but to move on to the next game. Disc 3 starts with Pac-Man riding around on a skateboard, which is pretty cool, but it only makes me wish I had a skateboard. Now, this is where the hub area really starts to get better. There's a theater where everyone seems to be having a good time, and there's a library with this strange humanish thing to greet you. I love this guy. All of these areas are here to give you supplementary things like text and pictures, but I think the areas themselves are the highlight. The first game area, and I'm not joking about this, actually made me go whoa when I first saw it. This was the first indication that Disc 3 had stepped up its game. The next one is also great. Just look at this. This one's a little less insane, but I like the idea of these scientists getting pissed off that I walked in on their experiment. I'm just gonna let the next one play. I think you can tell why I like it.
Miss Backman. Miss Backman.
Alright, next one. The fourth disc is by far my favorite. The CG opening isn't even interesting compared to the actual areas, so let's just skip it. This disc has the best hub area for sure. It replaces the theater with a live show. And it replaces the library with a relaxing lounge high above the city. There's another weird humanish character here. I also love her. The first game area has a nice floating spaceship while hard rock plays. Next is the area for Pac-Land. Before the area itself, there's a bridge that shakes up and down, and you're surrounded by a never-ending landscape of flowers. This upset me for some reason, and made me anxious about what I was going to see. I had no idea what was beyond the door, but I was actually a little nervous. Alright, this is pretty good. The next area is pretty simple, but I like this girl that greets you at the counter. She also says something when you leave, but I don't speak Japanese, so I'm just going to assume that she said, "I love you, come back!" Now, the next area is the highlight of the entire collection for me. It takes a while to get going, but I think you'll see why I was so surprised by it. Disc number 5 starts with my favorite CG scene of the compilation. Pac-Man and friends work together to kill this disgusting blue creature. And then they all gather where everyone wants to be. the Namco Museum. Now, the 5th game is a little different. The museum has changed again, and it's a lot more childlike and honestly dull. There's a bland library that doesn't have much to look at, and a stage play where a faceless Pac-Man tries to woo a faceless Miss Pac-Man. There's also an elevator that takes you up to this nice forest area, but that's it for the hub. Now, it seems like this disc is a bit more kid-friendly, so does that mean the game areas are a little less strange and potentially frightening? Alright, now to show off the best gameplay mechanic that I've been waiting for since Disc 3. Now you can skateboard. You can also do backflips as much as you want, cementing this area as the official most cool area in the Namco Museum. Disc number 6, Namco Museum Encore, was only released in Japan, and it's a massive disappointment. The CG intro is alright, it shows a lot of past characters from the other intros speeding towards some spaceship. As for the game itself, the museum greeter is here, but that's all that's been carried over from the other discs. Everything is only selectable from a menu, there's no area to walk around in at all. This is a pretty lackluster end to the series as a whole, but I at least enjoyed this one game, Wonder Momo. You play as this girl who kicks things in a miniskirt, who can also transform for some reason. When you've transformed, you can throw this disc thing at enemies. The fan service is very 80s, and I like that, but something feels off about this beginning screen. She looks like her teeth are still coming in or something. I don't like it. Hopefully I've shown you enough to make you interested in seeking the games out for yourself. There's something really fun about walking around these small, abstract areas, and I want this style of game to become more popular. There are plenty of other games like this, but I'd never say no to more. Exploring strange, slightly unsettling worlds where you're not exactly in danger, but you feel like you just might be, is an extremely specific genre that I think hasn't been taking full advantage of yet, and I'd just love to see more of it. Who knows, maybe I'll cover more of these games down the line. As for the Namco Museum itself, I think these areas just go to show how adding unique ideas to even something as simple as an arcade game compilation can elevate something to much more than the sum of its parts. Collections like these have come and gone, and plenty have been forgotten, but I know for a fact that I won't be forgetting these areas anytime soon. Hey, thanks for watching. I had fun recording the footage for this video, so if you want more like it, where I cover more obscure games, then tell me.